Welcome back to the James Ramblin' Reviews for yet another episode. And if you were confused as to why I was making those car sounds, well, in today's review, I'm actually going to be talking about this movie called Gran Turismo that does involve cars. And I'm quite late to the party with this because this movie came out in August and it's October. So I'll give you a bit of a context as to what I think about Gran Turismo, right? My background with it. So when it comes to Gran Turismo, it's like these video games about driving cars and going into these races. Well, I've not played in all of them, and I'll give you a plot summary as well, because especially once we start diving into that, right, you definitely don't need to play the games, because this is actually based on a true story of this guy that played the Gran Turismo games and goes on to win all these racing competitions and just absolutely wins, and he gets to meet the actual creator in the movie, gets to meet the creator of Gran Turismo, and he gets to kind of go up against these other gamers that were in that. And then there's also got his dad that's kind of undermining him in the beginning of the movie. There's all these things kind of happening. It's also kind of like this underdog story where you want that guy to win because he's a gamer, and it's kind of weird for a gamer to be winning these real life competitions in racing. So there's all of that, right? So how do I think about this movie, right? Gran Turismo is absolutely a surprisingly, very, very entertaining, very compelling, very good movie. And what I think really works about this movie is the fact that it's actually got very tense racing scenes. The acting actually isn't that bad. You know, you'd think to yourself, oh, this seems a bit cringe making an adaptation of a video game that's about driving cars. And definitely, if you watch the trailers, it felt a bit, you think it's a bit cringy. When you watch it, right, it's super compelling and you're invested in this story. And so it's very good to see how this adaptation would do this. And it's very good how it's also kind of like this based on a true story, and you get to see how the whole thing unfolds, and you've also got the relationship, and you get to see the bad side of it as well. Like, the movie doesn't just say, oh, he's a winner, he's absolutely the best, right? They show the dark side of this whole thing, like how he crashes later on, and you get to see that happening. So it's not like paintbrushing it and saying, oh, he's the best thing ever. They're kind of like showing you the flawed side to things and how it's imperfect when you're doing this, because there's a lot of pressure, especially when you're driving and there's tons of people watching. So you definitely get that, right? So that's definitely what's decent about the film. Now, what do I think is like kind of imperfect about the movie? Definitely the first 20 to 30 minutes felt a little bit slow for me, and it was kind of taking a bit to get going. But once it started to get going, man, it just zoomed really fast, like the McLaren, one of the McLarens you've seen in the film. There's also Orlando Bloom's character that's kinda doesn't really have a lot of character development, so he's kinda just like this business guy for all the stuff to do with Gran Turismo and all the sponsorships to do with like Nissan and etc etc etc. So he hasn't got a lot of character development. So that's kind of my flaws with it. It's not a perfect movie. It also can kind of feel kind of cliche, like he's like, oh, you've got this. It's very inspirational. You can do this, man. You can do this. And it definitely does feel like Air in a sense, like that Air movie. Got a bit of inspiration going for it. Like, you can do this. The underdog wins, etc. So it's not like there's movies that have done this before. But the fact that this movie actually is very decent is good, because it's especially interesting given the fact that you've already had the Last of Us TV show, you've already had the Mario movie, you've already had the Tetris thing, you've already had a lot of these video game adaptations where they're coming out of the woodworks and they're saying, oh, you can actually make video game adaptations decent. Now, this is kind of like a 50% video game adaptation and 50% a biography of a dude that actually was a person who was a gamer that turned into all that kind of stuff, right? And he won all the competitions. And I definitely think that how his dad actually realizes, he stops undermining him and he realizes, okay, this guy actually can do something with his life. He's not this silly gamer sitting on his ass anymore. He's actually won these competitions. And so what would I give this movie out of 10? I definitely would give the movie an 8 out of 10. It's definitely not perfect. And so that is kind of how I feel about the movie. If this review doesn't get tons of views, then I don't really care, right? I know I'm late to the party, it doesn't matter. This movie also didn't do too well at the box office, and I also just realised that If I saw this at the theatres, I definitely think it might have been better because of the surround sound and how I could hear the cars driving around. But other than that, really, man, I don't know. I expect to just turn on the camera and start raving about a car movie kind of thing, where I actually have never played the Gran Turismo games and I'm really raving about it. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this episode of the James Ramblin' Reviews, where we actually found something to review. We hopefully will get some more reviews out, and obviously stay tuned for the next episode of the James Ramblin' Show that will be coming out in a few hours' time. As this comes out in a couple of hours, we'll see. So yeah, bye. Bye. I'll zoom out of here and I'll become first place because I reviewed Gran Turismo.